The modern footballer faces a huge variety of stressors on a daily basis, which can ultimately lead him to overtrain. This is especially common amongst players that are trying to reach a really high standard in the game, like signing a pro contract or winning a championship with their team. Now, I'm sure you have heard the term overtraining, and you may have thought that you may have reached this condition at some point, but have you really reached that state? That's what we're going to discuss in today's video. Before we dive deeper into the topic, let's first gain clarity on the term overtraining. Overtraining is a pathological condition that can be caused by an excess training load that doesn't allow the body to recover and adapt to the training stimulus you put it through. Psychological stress and pressure are factors that can further speed up the occurrence of overtraining, which can be responsible for a series of negative symptoms such as chronic fatigue, mood swings, reduced motivation, a high frequency of minor injuries, and even infections due to your immune system's weakness to defend yourself. In total, we have 4 different stages of overtraining that are categorized in chronological order and ultimately lead to the overtraining syndrome. Everything starts with simple training fatigue, or else known as functional overreaching, which is usual after a demanding, high-intensity training session or competitive game. The next stage of overtraining is called non-functional overreaching. This usually occurs when, in addition to normal training stress, the body also receives psychological stressors that may not even be related to football. Then, acute overreaching follows. We can say that this is a prolonged form of training fatigue or overexertion, and therefore a prolonged decrease in performance is experienced. Lastly, we have the overtraining syndrome. This is a chronic condition in which the athlete continues to excessively stress himself on a physiological and psychological level. Many times, players even think that the training load they are already using isn't enough, and in turn try to further increase it. One condition follows the other, and every stage of overtraining is an indicator of a transition to the next stage. Identifying the problem at its early stages can be key to avoiding any stage of the overtraining syndrome. The causes of overtraining can be different based on the type of overtraining you're experiencing, as well as the stage you're in. Apart from the overtraining stages we mentioned, we split overtraining into 2 types depending on which nervous system it affects. We have sympathetic and parasympathetic overtraining, each of which can be caused by different factors. Sympathetic overtraining is usually caused by a high training intensity sustained for long periods without an initial accumulation phase that will integrate the athlete into those higher training intensities. On the other hand, parasympathetic overtraining is usual in the cases of high training volume. However, it isn't quite that common amongst footballers. Having said that, the causes of overtraining aren't only limited to training, but can also be linked to the mental well-being of the athlete. So far, we know that overtraining can be caused by high training volumes or intensities that are sustained for prolonged periods of time, an immediate return to the sport after a long absence without an accumulation phase, poor training periodization, neglected recovery, internal and external sources of pressure, mental health issues, unsupportive lifestyle, existing health problems, electrolytic imbalances, poor nutritional choices, and the list goes on. Most of the time, we're talking about a combination of causes and not one root cause. That's why you and the people around you need to approach this problem holistically in order to find its root causes. As far as symptoms are concerned, we can say that they vary based on whether we're talking about a sympathetic or a parasympathetic overtraining case. So on one hand, we have sympathetic overtraining with symptoms that affect the sympathetic nervous system, including acute fatigue, weight loss, sleep disturbances, excess sweating, headaches, a high resting heart rate, an inability to recover quickly, incorrect decision making, overarousal, shakiness, depression, and a lot more, which you can see by pausing the video. On the other hand, we have parasympathetic overtraining, which is harder to diagnose because the symptoms linked to it many times don't indicate any mental or physical health issues. For example, an overtrained athlete with parasympathetic symptoms experiences normal fatigue, doesn't have sleep issues, sustains a normal BMR and weight, and supposedly looks and feels quote-unquote healthy. However, that's far away from the truth. Players who have a really low resting heart rate, decreased arterial pressure at rest, chronic inflammation, or low movement efficiency at higher intensities might be suffering from parasympathetic overtraining. So if you think you're an overtrained individual and experience any of these symptoms on a constant basis, it would be advised to seek medical care. Early diagnosis will save you days, weeks, or even months of recovery. Don't run into any assumptions just by watching this or any other video on the internet. Seek medical care and get all the necessary medical examinations done to gain a holistic view of the issue. The first step to treat overtraining is to avoid any activity for a while and rest. This off period mainly depends on the stage of overtraining you're at. Rest and recovery time can range from a week and can reach up to an entire season. At the same time, you should pay close attention to your psychological state. To address the mental side of the problem, you first need to discover the source of the issue. For example, you might be facing some issues outside of the football pitch that might be stressing you out, or you might be feeling more pressure because you went up a level and got outside of your comfort zone. Whatever that is causing more stress and anxiety to you, you shall deal with it and avoid suppressing it. Create a better environment around you. Find ways to minimize the effect uncontrollable things have on your life and face your problems. Seeking professional help from a sports psychologist or mental performance expert can be key to achieving a smoother, faster, and more effective return to sport. It is also important to mention that the symptoms you're dealing with should also be addressed with the help of your healthcare pro. Of course, this alone won't solve the issue, but it is an important step to take to help you feel better. On top of that, maintaining or acquiring proper eating habits is a must even if you are not overtrained. Adequate hydration and a diet high in carbohydrates, proteins, and rich in vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats will support your recovery and help you heal faster. Blood tests, as well as other biochemical examinations, can also be really useful as they can offer a clear picture of what's going right or wrong and help identify the weak spots of your body's functions. However, that is something you should discuss further with your doctor. Lastly, the final stages of the return to the sport are also really crucial. Because of the long absence from the sport, the player should progressively increase the training load in an attempt to avoid getting overtrained again. An accumulation phase is always advised to allow the neuromuscular system to slowly adapt to the training stimulus. Someone could argue that preventing the overtraining syndrome is a relatively easy task since most of its causes can be regulated by either us or the coaching staff. However, there are also many other factors that are out of our control. One of the most important steps to minimize the risk of overtraining is to follow some really basic yet effective principles of coaching and programming, such as progressive overload, effective periodization schemes, as well as applying the appropriate volumes, intensities, loads, and exercises that fit the team's or the individual's needs and limitations. Another really important task that should also be an integral part of any training program is rest and recovery. Do not wait for an injury or excess fatigue in order to take a day off and recover. Instead, plan out days that are dedicated to rest and recovery. On top of that, nutrition and sleep are some of the non-negotiables that are linked to a healthy lifestyle that you simply cannot avoid if you want to sustain a healthy and well-functioning body. You might as well get various medical checks from time to time to make sure your body is functioning properly and detect any issues that you may not be able to feel on the surface. Lastly, we shall also emphasize how important your mind is. Sustaining psychological health, managing your environment properly, but also your emotions, and being aware of the issues you're dealing with both on and off the field are all key things that can help you prevent a mental burnout either at the early or later stages of overtraining. Optimizing and maximizing your performance is something good. However, there are certain limits you simply cannot cross. That is why you always hear us talk about smart work. So please guys, pay attention to the quality of your work, not only the quantity of it. Start valuing things such as your nutrition, your lifestyle, your sleep, how you structure your workload, and of course, recovery. All of these aren't only going to help you minimize the risk of overtraining, but also help you achieve the best possible training results. In fact, I'm pretty sure you would absolutely love the 2 videos that will pop up on your screen right now. Let us know more about your experience with overtraining in the comment section below. I'm sure everyone would benefit from listening to the mistakes that have led you to overtraining. Once again, thanks for watching guys. Have a good one.